Fine. I was being hilarious, and I thought
Missed it all in the recording.
doesn't matter.
Okay.
Everybody's up. I'd have my cam on, but I'm in the process of moving. My room is a mess. Looks like a hurricane hit it. I'm a proud coward. Fair enough. Be proud of your cowardliness. Great job. We encourage camera. It is not needed. You are totally entitled to having your room look like a hurricane.
All right, you ready?
Yes, let's do this.
Okay, so hi everybody, welcome back.
I like we were doing our cheerleader, the perfect year there. Ready? Okay.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna go over your homework. Submissions, they look really good.
They
Yeah.
do. I had a peek at them earlier today. They
Really
look
excited.
fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you guys got this assignment. And let me just see a show of hands who feels a little bit more confident in placing characters in a 3D world. Raise your hand or your virtual hands. Yes,
Oh.
Jody, Lauren,
3, 5, 6.
Marlena,
This is
Courtney.
good. Look at you
Victoria,
guys being brave.
Sarah.
Yeah, I said it in the little chat here, but I was like, I'm so happy that there's so many submissions because I knew that there might not be potentially as many submissions because perspective is hard, but was so happy to see all the art in there. And if you didn't submit, that's okay. I still encourage you to try to do this homework because perspective is daunting, but you will be better for it. And the more you do it, the more you understand.
Yep.
Yeah, Jody says it was hard, but learning from the class. Great, I'm glad to hear it. All right, so what I'm gonna do.
Week 4, I'm sorry, that was week 4. I did not get to see week 4's homework assignments, but
No, you didn't?
I would still love to if you could
Yeah,
share.
no, yeah, you know what? I think what I sent you, sorry, I didn't communicate that clearly that
That's
was
totally fine.
another. Let me just send that to you real quick. Oh, wait, no, that's not what I wanted. Copy link. You don't have access to the, oh, geez, I'll get you.
I do. I just need to actually. You know what? I can go back to the beginning of the Discord, and I can zap it there. Eden pinned it way up there.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead through some of this stuff, and anything that I see that needs work, I'll screen capture it and do some edits in Photoshop. So let me set that up really quick in Photoshop. Create new.
Darlena was on the struggle bus. You know what? It's totally fine. Simplification is the key. It's exactly what Larissa and Eden, it's their main mantra. Simplification and exaggeration, especially when it comes to anything animation oriented. It's one of the hardest things to do is keeping things simple.
Yeah, it really is. But that's the goal for
Look
us.
at you guys. I'm loving what I'm seeing.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start. All right. And now you can block people and drive, really? Okay, I didn't know that, but good to know. Okay, so let's take a look at Levi's stuff here. Levi's got some really cool Dutch angles in his panels here, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, very great. So what, just to review what I had said is that you're going to take your horizon line and you're going to place it in a panel, or rather a panel or a small box or a composition picture plane, and then you're going to create your vanishing point as the focal point, which is your position of honor for your main character. And then you're going to draw the background elements around it so that your characters are supported by the compositional lines that you use to draw the background elements. And these are really fun. I like the way you've really kind of made this dynamic. You've got your simplified mannequins all crossing the picture plane in the same place. Now I'm going to zoom in on, let's see if I can zoom in on this a little bit here. So like up here, if I can, this character right here is standing on the horizon level. So that isn't quite accurate unless this is a tangent of some sort where this character is kind of like flying up in the air. But if this character were standing on the horizon level far, 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 far away, it'd be really, really small. So most likely this character is closer in space to this character and this character, but he is looking like he's standing on the edge of the ground line because he's connected to this long horizon level. So what I would do is if you want this character to either be the same size as this character here, I would adjust it so that he's on the ground plane. Does that make sense?
Sorry, I kind of missed you there. Which box are we looking at?
Oh, sorry. Let me screen capture this and then I can actually make more sense of this.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Okay, and then I'll go in and just mess around with this in Photoshop. This would actually make more sense here. Okay, so what I was trying to say is, and I'm gonna just rotate this so that this horizon level is like, you know, parallel with the window here. But if, get a good brush here. So you have this character, here's your vanishing point here, and you have this character standing here, and then you've done this really great thing of creating the vanishing point here so that this character, that they're about the same height further back in space. But what you've done here is you've taken this exact character and drawn a vanishing point back this way and this way, and you've placed him, he would be the right size if you were right here.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah, I
but
see.
You've placed him on your horizon level. Okay. And because you placed him on the horizon line, he looks like he's standing on the horizon, which means that if you were standing on the horizon, he'd really be like this small. You wouldn't even be able to see him because he'd be far, 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 far away. But if he is really literally in space, like right here, you can have him anywhere here, but I would suggest having him, you'd have to like put him here, but then have some kind of a ground shadow that shows that he's standing in this position in space right here. Or he'd have to be standing on a box of some sort, okay? But what I would do is I would take this dude here and I would move him, so he really should be right here, okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, that
I
does.
did? Okay, great, good. Okay, so that's what I would say for these. But these are really great. So, and you got the whole idea of adjusting and creating a vanishing point further back in space to make sure that your character is the right size. And that looks pretty good. You're welcome. One thing that I would say though, is that for this one here, let's take this and okay. For this position, for this element here, okay, you've got your horizon level, okay, which is right here. Oops, let me get a good bright color. You've got your horizon level right here, but you also have your characters' heads aligned with that horizon level. And what I would do is say, okay, now this is a tangent. A tangent is anytime you have an object that's aligned with some other element and it doesn't tell you whether or not which object is in the front or the back, okay? So you change that relationship by adjusting the object, okay, just by moving it up. So what you would do is most likely, you can still have these characters here, but what you would do is instead you would adjust their head a little bit higher. And actually what you want to do is, because you have this airplane back here, okay, you have this airplane back here. Wherever these humans would be standing, their height in relationship to this airplane, because this is your established element in the in your space, that's how tall they would, that's what you would use to measure them. So let's say you have this airplane back here is on this ground line in space here. And if a human was to be standing next to this plane back here, it most likely would be standing where their head would be about this tall. Okay. And so if the human was standing in relationship to this plane and they were this tall, that means that every human in this space that is the same size as this guy would have to be having their torso cross the horizon level at this point. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, I get
So
it.
then what we would do is, like, let's say if we wanted somebody to be standing right here, okay, and we would take this established character right here. Okay, I'm doing a lot of colors here, but I would take this dude where he's standing here. I'll just lower this a little bit. Okay. Where he's standing here, draw a line out here to this point here, okay? And then take that same point and align that with the top of his head and bring that up here, okay? So until it meets this point here. So what is actually going to be happening is if you have any humans standing right here, this is how tall they would be, okay? And their torso would be crossing at this point here, the same place as that one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now.
Okay, so if you wanted to, for instance, do this, but if you're more concerned with creating a, like, not a down shot, but a shot where you're above everyone's heads, most likely what I would say is you'd want to do something like this, where you would say, all right, here's your horizon level. Oops. Here's your horizon level here, okay? And if you want to make it so that everybody is below you, your eye level, this is your horizon level and your eye level, okay? Then you would say, all right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make everyone one head below the horizon level. So this is gonna be one head that's not gonna be part of your dude, okay? And then you can draw your dude here. Okay, so you can draw a dude here. Let's do this, draw this dude here. Oops, brush. Okay. Okay. Now, anytime you draw a dude that's the same size as that dude, you just have to make sure that they're one head below. Okay. And then we can take this thing here. Oops. And align this where we want this head to be with the horizon level. And then we take this and we align this with this here. And then we drop this down here. And that's how tall the human would be there. Okay. And then your airplane, you'd have to say, well, let's see, where would the airplane be? How tall would a person be standing next to this airplane? Probably the airplane would be this low. And then if you probably have to lower it like this. Okay, so if you have the airplane here, then you'd say, okay, a dude would be, oops, this low. And then this tall next to the airplane. And then you'd have to kind of do the same thing over there, where you can align this person here. Oh, my lines are so messy. Okay. And then that's how tall they would be there. Gets a little confusing. I know, I'm sorry. But the basic idea is that if you can establish where one person is in this three-dimensional space, and then you've learned the simplified way of establishing how tall that person would be anywhere in space, in this three-dimensional space, and then understanding how you can adjust things in relationship to that figure, then it's a little bit easier to figure out how things are, okay? So I hope, I don't know if that was confusing or if it simplified anything. Did that help, Levi?
That did a lot, and I actually got a lot, especially about like the horizon level. I think that was the biggest takeout from the correction.
Great. All right, cool. Thank you. I'm glad that helped. So I'm going to keep going here because I want, a lot of you did some really amazing work, and I want to just go through it really quick. Rosanna, this looks really great. So Larissa, playing around, Chicken Girl is not at focal, so this doesn't work then. Actually, no, it does work. Okay. The Chicken Girl is in the foreground, but what you've done is you've drawn attention to a secondary character. Okay. Because the Chicken Girl is in the front, she's the largest, she's taking the most visual space. She is now, very prominent. But what you've done is you created the secondary character where the focal point is. So we'll talk about that. Caleb's going to talk about that hopefully, or I'll maybe talk about that in the next coming weeks too, when we talk about composition and visual hierarchy in terms of what takes your attention from, what and how to manipulate the visual objects in your space so that you can ensure that the thing that you want to be the focal point is the thing that is seen first and foremost. But in terms of laying out your characters and your composition, this is really great, Rosanna. Okay, and all of these are really great too. Super cute characters and settings. I would watch here on this, on this one. No, let me try this again. Okay. On this, why are you not working? Okay. On this one here, you want to watch that the vanishing point on the picture frames here aren't quite lining up as much. There's going to be a little bit more skewing on the side of the walls here. Like if you were standing in a hallway and you're looking at a picture on the side of the wall, you're not even going to see as much of it necessarily. So make sure that all of your drawings are lining up to that vanishing point, because it looks like they kind of are here, but then they just look a little bit, what's happened is there's going to be a little bit more skewing there. And I just want you to be mindful of that. Okay. These are really great. Yes. Beautiful. Love it. And I love the way that you've added these characters in there. I love that you're showing your work. Don't know about anyone else, but as what I drew got totally getting into it, totally getting stuck. Is that what that says?
Yeah, I would get it. And then as I did it, because I went back, especially that scene with the one before it with the person right at the end. You'd think you'd get it, and then I'd forget how to do the relationship after I get the second or third person. Because when the first one works out nicely, then it's like the relationship. Now you just showed me on the previous one, Levi's work. I was like, I can see what how you work that secondary character can get you the third one. It's playing off, but you start to get in this loop. That then I was like, whoa, where am I? I'd have to like start again. I'd feel like that feeling of like, where am I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is. It can get a little bit confusing. I think as long as you establish, at least for me anyway, as long as I establish that first character and the second character, that provides a sense of accuracy and the distance and the depth and the space. And then it's just a matter of making sure that all the things around them relate to the size of that particular character. We'll get into that a little bit more. These look great.
Good to see for that.
Say that again?
The plain one was good to see for that.
Okay, good. I'm glad that was helpful for you as well.
Sarah Steinberg, sorry if I pop in here, mentioned a really helpful tip. It looks like there was a little bit of that here, where there's a grid where you want to pop in like a ground plane or any sort of plane that might help, even if it's like a building or a mountain or something like that. Something that suggests like topography, and it just sort of it's like a stand-in for what you'll eventually put in with a little bit more detail. But it really does help in terms of like figuring out where things can be laid in, and it will help avoid things like tangents and unwanted overlaps and things like that. If that's sort of like if it's bugging you, or if you find yourself sort of like getting lost about where to put things, or where where you intended the camera to be versus where it ended up, things like that.
Yeah, and we didn't even get into a grid because I didn't want to take the time to get into like how to make an accurate grid. But you can get, if you're using digital programs, there are grids that you can create on Photoshop or Procreate or things like that. In terms of like just the basic stuff, I wanted to get that down. Dana, these are really great. I just wanted to say that I love how you kind of change this, and now we're looking at these characters from above. This is really fantastic, very smart, super cute. Also, just keep in mind the boxes, you would see the inside of these flower pots, like you would literally see into them like you were looking at a shoebox. So they wouldn't necessarily be folded into the building. But I do love what you're doing. These are really great. I love playful characters. Really fun. Okay, good. Go runner. So we've got the vanishing point is like the high up above. So using Clip Studio Paint, I can see those rulers. And there we go. At the library, setting it up for a library scene, book. That's good. And let's see. So yeah, that's a good start. You've got one character and then another character behind them lined up. Yep, that's fantastic. Really great. And oh yeah, there you go. That'll work too. Now then the little dinosaur all the way in the back. Yeah, and the next thing you could do with this one is, create like a road or some kind of area around these animals for some kind of really basic environment. And okay, this is really great. I love these. I do want to say, Zenebek Demise perspective, that this towel right here is not quite right unless this character is like sitting on a hill. And this is where we get into like the ground plane perspective kind of thing. All of these are really great little sketches, quick sketches that you've done. So I'm going to take just a minute to screenshot this and kind of show you on that how that would be. Okay. And I'm just going to take a few more minutes because I want to make sure that Caleb has enough time. Okay, so the idea on this one is that you've got this character sitting here on the ground. What would literally be happening is that you'd want this towel to be more like this. Actually, okay. So if we're doing like a 1-point perspective, okay? And then your character would be sitting here rather than that way. Because what's happening now is that this looks like, this towel looks like it's angled up, like propped up, and this person is sitting on this like kind of slide. So it looks like they're sitting on a slide like this, and were it to be level with the ground, it would probably be something like this. And then we would take our grid and it would look like this. So yeah, if you had a grid, it would be a heck of a lot easier to place any ground elements on it, because then you could see where they are literally in space. Okay. And then let me go through this a little bit more. Let's see here. Oops. Okay. Oh, these are good. Love how you weave stories into your scenes. These are great too. Love this guy. It's like flying up in the sky. You've got like real action happening in there too. And I'll go over these a little bit more in detail after class.
Oh, that's really great.
Mm-hmm.
The overlapping with the boxes, the little shelves in front. That's so cool.
Yeah, this one is, yeah, this is really detailed. This is really great. All right, does anybody, this looks great too. Does anybody have overall questions that they need answered before we move on?
I think somebody has very patiently had their hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, Jody. No?
No, I'm sorry. That was my hand. I forgot to put my hand down when you asked if we felt more confident.
Jody's been standing in virtual class like this for like the last 30 minutes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. These are all, oh, I love, okay, so I love how you guys are like taking these things and doing these down shots. Really fun.
I see a lot of experimentation in here. It's really
Mhm.
encouraging.
Sarah,
Look at that. Sarah,
this is fantastic. Love it.
work. Ooh,
Mhm. We both said the same thing at the same time.
I'm sorry. I will not talk ever again.
No, no, that's good. I think she probably appreciates that. Wow. All right, you guys are getting it. So no, is there anybody that has any overlying or outstanding questions about this that they just did not get? No? All right, Sarah, beautiful clean lines there. Very nice. Sarah, you feeling better these days? You doing okay? Yes?
Yeah, a little better.
A little bit. Okay. Well, a little bit's better than not, right?
Yeah. All the positive progress, we'll take it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you, girl. All right. Oh, Bella. Wow. These are nice.
Really great little compositions here, guys. This
Mhm.
is so cool. These are beautiful little examples of world building. Bruno, sheesh, look at this.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna.
Oh, yeah, I do see what Eden's saying here, though. Yeah, we do have some rather confusing lines on in the perspective, but the rest of it, I mean, I feel like the scale works. I feel like the rest of it is looking pretty good. But yeah,
Yeah.
Eden's got it right here. The car is dipping below the grid, where it should be following the grid. So that that closer tire looks like it should almost be off the picture plane. But you kind of get the idea, I think.
I'll do a real quick rundown of that.
Does that make sense? Did I?
Yeah.
What Eden said there, or what I said?
Okay, if this wheel is closer to us than this wheel, but yet this wheel is higher on the picture plane than this one. And what really needs to be happening is, let's see, if this car were really, let's see.
Well, if the camera were like resting on the ground, then that would make sense. But
But it's not. The camera is
No,
not
like
resting
eye
on the
level.
ground because our horizon level is up here,
yeah, exactly.
right? So if we were to say this is our horizon level for this all goes all the way out here, and then we were to have this car, let's say we want this car facing this direction, okay? So if you want the car facing this direction, then what you would do is, let me just make this a little bit smaller. And this will be my last edit for today, and then I'll let you take over, and then I'll go into the file folder and I'll see if there's any other things that need adjustment and make adjustments on those.
Okay.
Okay, so then that's what would happen. This car would be facing this direction. Okay, car would be facing this way. And then mostly, well, what's going to happen is this is going to be turning into a 2-point perspective. And maybe we put, maybe we put this second point off over here in the distance. This is my really awesome car. Okay.
That's the best car I've ever seen.
Isn't that the best car you've ever seen?
Beautiful, beautiful car.
No, it's not a beautiful car. But that's what would be happening for this car here, most likely. If you wanted to have it angled this way, then you'd have to, it's no longer going to this 1-point perspective back here. We have a 2-point perspective. So if you wanted a car going to this 1-point vanishing perspective here, then it would probably be like, facing in that direction. and then you'd see the back of the car like this. There's the window, and then there's the wheels. There we go. Much like if you were looking at a box from the front of it, from one point perspective, it would look like that, but then the other box would look like this. And then the other boxes around would look like this.
So Larissa, we have
Yeah.
a question that you might be able to explain more eloquently than I could.
Go ahead.
And I felt the same way. Jody asked, are the vanishing points random?
The vanishing points are wherever you want them to be. Here's the thing. When you are creating an image, you set up your horizon level, which is what you did. Okay, you set that up wherever you want, and that becomes your established eye level. Okay, your eye level, your horizon level, and then anything that you draw has to have vanishing points that are going to connect on this eye level, horizon level, whether it's 1 point, okay, whether if you're drawing like a box that's going to this, this is the direction that it's facing. It's facing this direction, so it has 1 point perspective. Now, if you had another box that was facing in a different direction, like this, then this has 2 points. These points are going off over here, and these points are going off over here, okay? But what you have to know is that the points will always hit this horizon level, okay? Now, you could have something, I don't want to keep confusing. Does that make sense, Caleb? Does that make sense? Is there anything else that I need to explain about
It
that?
depends on where, just remember, it depends more about where, not where the stuff in the picture is, it's about where the viewer is. It's about
Yes.
where you imagine the camera being.
Mhm.
It may feel random to you, it's not. You're actually making very conscious decisions about, in the famous artist course, when I took perspective in school, they called it the station point. It's meant to be where the viewer is standing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it can be complicated, but what you're really doing is imagining not only what this looks like in your picture, but what it would look like from above. You're imagining sort of like a plan view of your composition. You know that block right there on the left is pointed more towards us. It's turned towards us. That block on the right is at a different angle. Exactly what Larissa's doing right now. And these are all very conscious decisions, and they may seem random, but really the perspective is there to help you. It's not meant to be the other way around. It's there to make your drawings look a little bit more realistic, like it actually occupies the same world that we do. It can seem really complicated. Perspective can be a tricky thing. There's a lot of angles involved, but to be honest with you, it's pretty elementary because we look at it every day. If you've got binocular vision, you know how to deal with perspective. It just takes a long time to sort of translate that onto a two-dimensional surface. So be patient with yourself, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, perspective is really deep. I mean, there's a lot to know about it in terms of how to be really accurate, but in terms of what you need to know moving forward, creating characters in a three-dimensional space, I try to give you the most basic information possible in terms of like how characters should relate to each other and how characters should relate to the environment around them. So I definitely recommend, there's a book, basic perspective book, it's like from the 1950s. It's very involved and it's very detailed. I definitely, if you're having any problems with perspective, I definitely recommend that you do more deep diving and you do more research on it. And that's going to help that's only going to help you. Okay. But in terms of what you need to know now, I just hope that you had enough to get you to the next step, because what I don't want to do is give you, and what I've done in the past is given too much information where people are just completely confused and they can't move forward with drawing. So I wanted to give you just enough information so you can go, okay, this is how you draw a character in space with other characters, with a table.
Eden has actually dropped a really good suggestion right here. There are lots of really fun crash courses in perspective. I could share, actually, I probably can. I have a really poor scan of the famous artist courses. They've been free for a long time. I have the one on perspective, chapter 10, and it's very crunchy. It's very academic, but
You
if
know,
you
you should put that in the resources file.
I will do that. I'll
Yeah.
do that.
So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop for now. I know I didn't get through all of them, but I'm going to continue through the file folder during class, and I'm going to let Caleb take over, and he's going to talk to you about character design today. You
Woohoo.
ready?
Yes.
Are you?
I am super ready. Let's do this. Let me share. Okay, let me share my screen here. So the main thing I want you guys to remember when it comes to characters. What about the characters walking, the foot marks in the middle? Rosanna, that you got galaxy brain right now. So we'll get there in a little bit. You're like thinking big deep thoughts. You got such a wrinkly brain. But we'll get there in just a little bit regarding like walking and like depicting your character in motion and expressing stuff. Probably not this week, but we definitely will probably start on it next week. Anyway, characters are probably the most important part of uh, Western storytelling, I would say, especially like this week should be more fun. As far as like figuring out how to get people feeling sympathetic and interested emotionally with your story. A lot of there's been a lot of talk recently in the various chat rooms that I sort of in Twitter threads that I occupy about what is more important, story structure, character, character driven stories, plot driven stories. And one of my favorite writers ever, Mark Wade, said, "There's, I mean, there are plot driven stories, and they're boring as heck. The best stories ever are about characters that have conflict between them." He's like, the example is like, do you remember like the plot to any James Bond movie? No, of course you don't, because they're all the same plot. But what you do remember are like how the characters resonated with each other. That when they were sneering at each other, or when they said a cool line or something like that. And you remember what they wanted more than anything else. The best stories are when what different characters want get in the way of what other characters want. And of course, the best stories, it's like literally you can pick any story that's been really popular and that's, or any television show that's lasted more than 2 seasons, and literally you could describe it as this. It's a story in which a character isn't getting what they want. You could be talking about Game of Thrones. You could be talking about The New Girl. You could be talking about any television show ever. Steven Universe. It's literally, Supernatural, 15 seasons. It's about characters who don't get what they want. They have to compromise. And that's what most stories are kind of about. All right, so here we are. So can you guys see my screen here, the character concept? Eden's nodding, Larissa's shaking her head. You're muted, Larissa. Yes, you can. Okay, good. All right, so one of the best ways in order to start figuring out what our characters' relationships are is to begin with their design, is to figure out what they, to see if they look like if we can sort of predict by their design what their heart's desires truly are. And one of the easiest ways to do this and this has been true for hundreds and hundreds of years, is through what's known as shape language. Now, what is shape language? Okay, well, it's pretty easy. It's basically how you describe a character's personality traits visually, and a lot of it can be based on cultural tropes or things like that. But for the most part, we live in a global society where people can watch any video ever, any you want, and those kind of tropes tend to be more universal now. Let me give you guys some examples because I know I'm getting a little wordy here. Okay, so we got three shapes, right? We got a square, we got a triangle, we got a circle. Yeah, I literally almost blanked on the word circle. We got a blocky, we got a pointy, we got a roundy. Um, now forget what they're called, right? How do they make you feel, right? Think about it. What are the emotive traits that you typically associate with shapes like this? Okay, with a square, you typically think of like, blocky shapes. You think of things that are strong, like a brick, stubborn, heavy, inflexible, solid. People that, if you have a lot of points in a character, people typically think of them as being asymmetrical or perhaps broken or chaotic, sharp. People, when you have a character that resembles, that has a lot of edges on them, people tend to think of broken glass. This is true in Native American textiles. This is true in Chinese watercolor. The more points you have on something, the odds are the character's trying, or the artist is trying to give you an idea that it's threatening. Right, and it goes back to our psychology. It looks like broken glass. It looks like a claw or a tooth. A circle. What's round? Balls, oranges, fruit, berries. They tend to be fun. They bounce. They're boisterous. They retain their shape. They're flexible, right? They have energy. Babies are round, fat little beautiful babies, right? There's a fun little thing that my character design students often say. If I put a character that doesn't have a whole lot of edges on them, that have a lot of round shapes, they're like, oh, he's friend shaped. I hate it when they use it to describe me, but when my characters are friend shaped, I know what they mean. Thanks, Eden. I appreciate you not laughing out loud. Do you want to roll? Exactly, Eden. Would you rather hold a round baby or a pointy baby? Ow, my finger. You get the idea. Okay, so how does this relate to character design itself? Okay, well, think of, to be honest with you, there's a lot of characters in popular media. Kirby is peak friend shape. Thank you, Lauren. You're absolutely right. uh, let's think of like some Pixar movies recently. Okay, so they tend to use a lot of abstract shapes in the more recent Pixar films in order to describe their characters. One of my favorites is Carl. I mean, look at Carl. He's beautiful. But what is Carl? Is Carl boisterous? Is Carl resilient? Is Carl threatening or sharp or chaotic? He's not any of these things. He's a literal circle. Lol. Yeah, thanks a lot, Lauren. No, he literally means a square. If you cut a rectangle into the wall, you would slide him in perfectly. Yeah, Phineas from Phineas and Ferb is a triangle. But we'll get to that in a minute. Everything about him, even if you squint and look at the values on his inner silhouette, like the aspect of his jaw, the fact that he's got a perfectly aligned belt with the horizon, the cuffs of his pants and his sleeves, everything is perfectly square. Even his shoulders are aligned with the horizon. If you turned around, there's a little curve to them, but it's mostly flat. Very strong, very steady, very stubborn. This is the character that by the end of the movie has to learn how to be flexible, right? That's Carl. Now, what's this character's name again? I keep blanking on it. Kevin. Thank you, Darlena. Appreciate it. Kevin. Is Kevin stubborn? Is Kevin strong? Not really. When you look at Kevin, you see a lot of what, especially if you squint. Again, if you look at not just at the main silhouette, but look at the shapes inside. There are points all over the place with Kevin. Kevin has a small, smooth brain. Yes, you are. Yeah. Kevin does look like a friend, but there are more edgy aspects to Kevin, mainly because he's there to screw things up. He's chaos. Yes. Thank you very much, Darlena. He is chaos incarnate. Energetic, yet chaotic. Now, not all of these traits apply to Kevin, but he's definitely there, or she is definitely there, to get the story moving if it stalls. That's what's great about sharp characters. They make things interesting. Oh, characters can totally be more than one shape. We'll get there in a minute. And now we have Russell. Russell is 100% a friend shape. Until you look a little closer. Now, Russell is, it's like everything about him is just bouncy and fun. It's like he is orange like a basketball. There are no sharp edges on his outer silhouette, hardly at all. But when you look inside, again, you can see that there's a lot of asymmetry. He's got a collar poking out over his little kerchief. He's got a triangular banner behind him. He's got an asymmetrical sash with all of his buttons on it. He is very, very pure. But he also, like Kevin, is there to keep the story moving. He wants stuff. He messes up Carl's perfect little world. Carl's got a plan, and Russell's here to muck it up. True King. Thank you very much, Lauren. Yeah, fun, resilient, boisterous. He's not particularly stubborn. He's not particularly strong. It's like if you pushed him, he would spring back, right? Now, these are all fairly simple character designs. For the most part, like maybe one or two shapes most between them. Yeah, the trumpet also adds to the silhouette. That's like the most realistic part of him is that little bugle behind him. But you get the idea, though. It's that it's meant to sort of he's round but also asymmetrical. Roly poly oly. Yeah, actually, a lot of children's shows tend to have more of these abstract shapes. We'll talk about why that's true in a little bit. But this is the reason why these character shapes, why shape language is so important. It's mainly about the relationship when you put them together on the screen or on the page. It's about how they conflict with each other. How one person wants something and the other character gets in the way of that want. And it's not just a want. I mean, it's like a heart's desire. Okay, what is Carl's heart's desire? He wants to get to Paradise Falls, right? Why? Because it was one thing that he never did when he thought he had time, and now he's running out of time because he's getting old. Russell, what does Russell want?
The badges?
Badges. Well, I mean, yeah, but also, what's his heart's desire? He wants to help Carl. He's kind of a humorous. He wants that badge. In order to get the badge, he has to help Carl. He constantly gets in the way. And Carl wants to be left alone, but by the end of the film, he realizes that he can't do this. He can't do it alone. Kevin just wants chocolate. I'm pretty sure that's all Kevin wants. Who here is Kevin? Show of hands. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Kevin is a mood. Thank you, Alison. Big mood. Be prepared to cry in the first 5 minutes. Yes, it is. Seriously, I really did. When I saw this movie, I was like, how dare they? I was like, there needs to be like a warning or something associated with this friggin' movie. Because the first 5 minutes will devastate you emotionally. Anyway, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the reason why they work so well together is because they share the same level of character abstraction. They have the same amount of shape language between them. And it's really kind of beautiful. They're very simple. Now, what if we took something a little bit more complicated? What if we took all three and kind of combined them? Made a sort of like a character that had a composite of all these different shapes. Definitely one more than the others, though. Okay? Let's take Mr. Incredible. All right? Is he stubborn? Yes. Is he strong? Yes. Is he dynamic? Well, look at him. If you squint, yeah, you can definitely see all the squares and so he's all shoulder, tiny little feet, tiny little head. But if he were standing there with his feet together, he's a triangle, right? He's an inverted triangle, which means he's all about, pointy calves to his feet. He is all about forward motion. If he put his feet together, he would topple over. Okay, he's not asymmetrical. He's actually quite symmetrical, but that sort of goes back to the stubborn, strong, inflexible thing. Also, at this stage in his story, his better years are behind him. He's a dad now. He's kind of roly-poly, so that also adds to his shape language. There aren't a whole lot of edges to him. Okay, he's fun. He's energetic. He's boisterous. He's, I don't know if resilient or flexible really apply to him, but he definitely has a lot of forward motion. He's very dynamic. All right, this is what we would call a more composite shape language for this particular character. And all the other characters in The Incredibles kind of shares this level of complexity. He also starts with a friend-shaped stomach. Yes, exactly. Well, doesn't really start, but you get the idea. Yeah, he eventually develops a friend-shaped stomach. And then, as the movie goes on, he becomes, sort of like his best self in a way. He's not as arrogant as he was when he was younger, and but he's also, but he also doesn't give up as easily. He's a perfect amalgam of his different traits. Now, does this make sense to everybody? All right, shape language is really easy to describe. Utilizing it, on the other hand, can be a little tricky. Remember that it's there mainly to describe how you feel about your character and who your audience is really kind of meant to be, more than anything else. So you can have all different kinds of complexity and abstraction in your character as long as you keep the shape language intact. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. Any questions at the moment? I don't think I see anything. Let me stop sharing.
I think we're good so far. Just a lot of friend-shaped comments.
A lot of friend-shaped
encouraged.
Excellent. All right, cool. Well, that's great. All right, let's keep going then. Before we get into actual drawing, though, I also want you to think about, one of the more difficult things is to come up with that initial, like, what does your character want? What is their heart's desire? If you are having trouble coming up with like reasons for your characters to be together, or like a level of abstraction or things like that, consider reading books, watching movies. There are fantastic examples of really, really great character interactions and character relationships. All you need to do is pick a couple Oscar winners. I constantly refer back to movies like, like Jaws or E.T. or these are all ancient movies, but really Rocky, and pretty much any Oscar-winning movie you can probably think of. What's a more recent one? A Parasite. Okay, fantastic film, and it's all about characters getting in the way of what other characters want. Again, devastating, really, really good. Highly recommended. But there's actually a visual way you can actually describe some of these things as well. One of my favorite little tools to do this, I'm a giant nerd, so this will not surprise anybody. To figure out exactly what your character's heart's desire is a good old-fashioned Dungeons and Dragons alignment chart. Okay, so some of you have seen this sort of thing before, some of you have not, and that's totally fine. Alignment charts are very useful because, again, it sort of describes It doesn't really describe your character's heart's desire. What it does is describe how they get things done. Oh yeah, I know. There are literally probably hundreds and hundreds of different quizzes to find out which one are you, or which one is your favorite pop culture reference. You know, where do they belong? Let me show you one of my faves here. Okay, so here's a more visual representation of what an alignment grid kind of looks like. All right, lawful good. All the characters that are lawful tend to have a code. All right, if you have a character that refuses to do one specific thing because it's against what they believe in, odds are that character is lawful. If a character is neutral, all they really care about is that things are fair, or that they get things done. They tend not to worry so much about the process as much as the results. And if characters are chaotic, they don't have a code at all. They will tend to get things done no matter what. They will always surprise you by going just a bit further than the other characters in order to achieve their end goals, in order to achieve their heart's desire. You know, great lawful characters, Captain Picard from Star Trek, Superman, even Darth Vader, because again, he follows the rules. Yes, he makes the rules because he's a horrible, space fascist, but he tends to follow them all the same. Neutral characters. You got Mal from Firefly. You got Treebeard, and of course you got the aliens from Alien. They don't have a lot of personality, but what they do have is a lack of conscience. That nothing gets in the way of getting their the end result. And then of course there's chaotic, and they will constantly surprise you by just going a bit further, having the willpower to push through what would stop other characters. What's more important than this, though, is that sometimes you have, and especially this happens a lot in episodic dramas like soap operas or TV show series, is that you have a character that acts in one way but wants to be something else. They are lawful evil, all right, but they want to be good. They want, and that's like when they become really, really. It's again, we're talking about composite characters again. When you and those are the ones that people tend to fall in love with, when they have somebody who's bad that wants to be good, or when they have somebody who's good but they tend to break their own rules all the time. Because that sort of level of complexity, I mean, it may be a little bit beyond the par for our current concept, but think about this if you decide to have somebody make a character that's really great at double crossing, or somebody who's tends to look like one thing but actually is another. Things like that. Does that make sense to you guys? There are all kinds of different alignment charts online. This is just one, but I love this one particularly because it describes the how it works pretty well. All right. Let's see here. I got just under an hour. What else can I show you?
I'll let you know when it's 10 minutes till, so we can go over homework.
All right, fantastic. All right, well, let's start with some very basic, some really, really basic exercises here. Let me share this real fast. Come on, there we go. There we are. Okay. Would their alignment change over time if their visual design is supposed to represent them visually? Absolutely. If a character starts off as being really kind of, lawful and rule abiding. They're kind of they're a little wishy-washy. One of my favorite examples of this, this is really silly, but one of my favorite examples of like how characters' designs change over time is, especially following their own arc, is just that tiny little 3-minute sequence from Frozen, the "Let It Go" song. If you begin the sequence and just start watching that little animated bit of the song "Let It Go" from Frozen, she starts off, being very sort of vertical, being very restrained. She's got a glove on one hand, which is her sort of her coping mechanism, and by the end of the song, she looks nothing like that anymore. There's no more contrasts. Her design is more asymmetrical and flowy. She's got a sort of a slinky cut in her dress. She's freer, right? That's the whole point behind that song, is that she's out. She's not afraid of hurting anybody, so she can be who she wants to be. And that's literally exactly what you just described, Nadia. And it happens all the time. Normally, there's a lot to do with hair as well. Anybody here see Tank Girl, the movie Tank Girl from the 90s? It's an old movie. I'm an old man. Okay, there's a character named Jet Girl. I'm gonna show this because you kind of have to see this. Portrayed by Naomi Watts. And at the beginning of the movie, yeah, here we go. At the beginning of the movie, her hair is kind of limp, gets in her eyes a lot. She's not wearing any makeup. She's wearing glasses because she's a nerd, because that's what nerds wear. Am I right, guys? No, never mind. By the end of the film, her hair has exploded in volume because now she's now she's a huge, badass. You're not allowed to see it. That's exactly right. I mean, look at the size of that hair. Big hair always equals power, guys. Always remember this. Yeah, write that down. Big hair equals power. You're not going to be quizzed. I'm just kidding. But you kind of get the idea. That's Naomi Watts, for those of you who don't remember. But yeah, here's before, and then we've got after. Now she's wearing makeup. She's got lipstick on. She's got eyeshadow, and her hair has tripled in volume. That's her little character arc right there, visually anyway. Write that down. Write that down. Yeah, it's important. Big hair, power. Like Dragon Ball. Exactly, just like Dragon Ball. Or pretty much any anime. I think the first one I ever saw that actually happen in was Valley of the Wind. Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, because it was called something different back then. Yeah, and suddenly she can see without glasses. I know, it's like She's All That, but post-apocalyptic. Actually, I think some people would argue that She's All That is post-apocalyptic, but forget it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Exactly. Same thing. Yugi's an icon. All right, everybody calm down. No fighting. No fighting about favorite icons. All right, so here we go. Let's do a little doodling here. Now, Larissa gave me some really, really fantastic examples about how to push your characters. This is it's a very good good way of doing it. I'm going to sort of show you my own kind of recipe for doing this. What I want you guys to do is remember that there's there's no wrong way to design a character, but there are ways that are more organic, more dynamic. It all depends on the tone of your story, like who you imagine being interested in it. In. And the first thing I want you to think about is how the shapes are kind of staggered on top of each other. Like for example, I want you to imagine each character is made up of at least somewhere between 1 and 3 different segments. Now the first one here is, well, it's what I call the snowman effect. It's not bad, but it tends to follow this rule that is a pretty big one when it comes to character design. I'm sorry, not a rule, a sort of a form that you want to try and adhere to. Static repetition is rarely a really good idea. What you want to do is you want to stagger shapes. So I'm going to give this one sort of like a plus and a minus because it's, or actually, you know what? I'll just give it one check because it's okay, but it could be better. Now this one here, like again, imagine a character with that's made up of 3 different segments of mass, and they're all exactly the same. Again, that's the definition of static repetition, and you want to try and avoid that. What's more interesting, or what tends to be more interesting, is when you stagger your shapes and your proportions. So you have these little undercuts. The more contrast you have in your proportions, it typically translates into a better designed character. It's what's known as pushing your shapes or varying your shapes, exaggerating your shapes, contrasts and proportions. Remember, characters are all about relationships, and that includes the masses that they're made from. Or where the details are, really, too. Now, oh, you know what? Before we continue, let me share with you one last thing. To add variety to the characters, yes. Are you saying to add variety to the characters? I want you to try to. I want you to try and keep them from being the assignment for this week is to design 5 characters. All right. Some of them are going to be simple. Some of them are going to be more complex. Oh, I'm sorry, not 5 characters. I want you to design a whole bunch of different kinds of characters, but literally like 3 different using 3 different shape forms or shape proportions. There's an artist that I want you guys to become familiar with. Some of you probably already have heard of him. Let me share this with you real fast. It's my resources guide. He's literally one of my favorite artists of all time, mainly because it's like literally, he's an expert course in everything that is successful about complicated characters and simple characters. His name is Ed Emberley. Some of you probably remember him because you remember seeing these kids' books, like how to draw, Ed Emberley's Drawing Book of Animals, things like that. Here, let me just drop this here. Okay, so this is Ed Emberley's Drawing Book of Animals. Anybody remember these? Okay, some of you, I'm getting some, thank you very much, Eden. Yeah. Some of you, you're shaking your heads. That's totally fine. They're kind of brilliant. The reason why every single page has at least a couple different sort of recipes for shapes that you add to other shapes in order to accumulate um, everything you need to make a character. You know, here's how to draw an owl with a fun little, you know, scholar's cap in 8 steps. Here's how to draw a frog. Here's a frog with an open mouth. Here's a frog that's sleeping. Here's a crab. Here's a bat. And every single step is just an accumulation of tiny little shapes or lines. They are, it's so perfect. And it's like literally the guys from Pixar must have picked this guy's brain in order to come up with all the different recipes they have for their characters. Most of the characters in his books either use 1 or 2 shapes. Sometimes they differentiate with colors, sometimes it's just lines, sometimes you don't use lines at all. Sometimes there's a whole series of books that he has where he just uses fingerprints as the only mark making that you need to do. And it comes with like a little stamp of washable ink. Here's how to make a lion with just fingerprints. Oh, and a pen. Yeah, you remember these. Okay, very good. It says you can do wit here, but this is actually based off of Ed Emberley, who also did this. These are woodcuts from the 1970s. Now, again, totally different. It's amazing, right? Totally different shape language here. This is much more complicated, but the recipe, the form behind assembling these characters is exactly the same. You can still see it's, you know, here's a U for the bottom of his torso. His legs are just letter L's, and all you need to do is just assemble different shapes on top of that. It's so beautiful. It makes me so happy to see to share these with you. Look up Ed Emberley. Did he make the Mr. Man show? I don't know what that is. I have to do a Google search. Homework for me. Hold on, let me write that down. Mr. Man show. I have to look that up. But does it make sense when I say how he's kind of varied the complexity? Like some things are literally just one shape, especially if it's just like a head, or some things are 2 shapes, or some things are 3, like the 3 segmented shape that we just did here. Let me jump back into my Photoshop. Okay, so to begin with, and we've got a little bit, the Mr. Man, yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. Thank you for sharing that idea with me. I love looking stuff up like that. Yeah, simple shape concepts. All right, here's the idea behind most of this. Like, let's take, for example, if you have a character, literally, it can be anything, it can be super simple. It's a character with a single shape. Let me throw a little bit of color behind here, just for fun. Is doing these just by themselves. Well, you need to shake things up a little bit. That looks good. One of my favorite examples, again, besides up, of utilizing very abstract shape language is the film Inside Out, which is, again, another Pixar one. Now, this is just a very simple little exercise. You can do this if you want to for your characters, but we're going to be doing a bunch of these for homework. All right, so let's imagine you just want to create a very simple character. And you just wanted to use like one shape. Actually, I'm going to put his mouth up here because he's super angry. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get rid of those eyes altogether. I'm just going to give him eyebrows. Okay, here's a character literally using just one shape. If you don't like the hands that I did, you can also literally just do like little. If you're like, that's cheating because the hands are shapes too, I'm like, okay, fine. Do something like that. Oh, I see what I was doing wrong. Why is he referee? I don't know why he is. He just is. Okay, now we've got a different guy. Let's see who can this person be? They have to be sort of roly poly, a little. Gonna add a couple little curlicues on the sides. Totally fine if we go out a little bit. The idea though is that still the main amount of detail is in that center mass. Tiny little feet. You know, I'm gonna try and like I don't want to do like a bowling ball. I don't want to put all the detail right down the middle. I'd rather move things around so that they're a little offset. Like so. Maybe she's got a little doggy here or something like that. God knows what that is. All right, and over here we got a triangle. Well, let's see. What can we do to make this one a little bit different? Let's make the head. So these two on the left and in the middle, they have their heads way up at the top of their segment. Let's move these down a little bit. Let's give this person something a bit bigger. Maybe it's like maybe it's a hat, or maybe it's let's see. Maybe it's hair. What else can I do to make him look kind of chaotic? Put him in a hoodie. Oh, maybe he's got like a little punky, like one ear slightly bigger than the other. There we go. Not sure about this guy. He looks like he could be an axe murderer. Not, I don't know. Anyway, so you got 3 characters. Each one is literally one shape. Pretty simple, right? Triangle person, yeah, they seen some crap. Um, Now, some of these look a little bit harder than others. Some, I mean, they're different. They're definitely there's no rules about like how you can, what part of them are hair, what part of them is clothing. I want you guys to mix it up a little bit. I definitely out of all these, the weakest one I'm going to say is the leftmost, my first one, which makes sense because I was getting all my rough stuff out. But if you divide him up, you got that, that equilateral snowman up here, and that's not great. This our fun little orange lady here, I kind of like her again, but mainly because she's got this big central segment and then a tiny little top one and a tiny little bottom one. So I'm going to say that that one's pretty good. And then we got, I'm not sure about this guy. He's kind of scary, but I still kind of dig him. Small, small, medium, medium. That's still pretty good, I think. Anyway, that's the kind of those are the sort of recipes that you want to sort of go by. Again, try and mix things up so that they are, so you avoid static repetition. Post panic attack, poor baby. Post panic attack. That's the name of his band. There you go. Perfect. Thank you, Simi Jesu. Perfect. Post panic attack at the disco. Remember also, if you can, and this is something that Larissa has tried to suggest a bunch of times as well, when you are mixing up your shapes and your segments or whatever you might be using, try to use, well, actually, this is probably going to be a little bit better with the next little round here. Here we'll use 2 shapes, okay? What I want you guys to do with this is to consider using 2 different ones, either stacked on top of each other or slightly overlapping each other, and try and sort of convey the idea, but regardless, one's going to be bigger, one's going to be smaller. Doesn't matter where they go. Also, consider the idea of like the consistency of the shapes as well. Think about what's in them. One's going to be hard, and the other one's going to be soft. Yeah, I'll just overlap these. That'll be fine. All right, so we're doing all right time-wise. This is making me happy. All right, so we've got 1 shape. Here we'll have 2 shapes. Your video is being funky. Heck yeah. Got a funky video. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I am making these kind of limited here. We don't have to make them squat like this. You know what? Let's mix it up. Let's make one of these tall. Like so. One of them, one of them would be about the same. Oops. And the other one, let's make it a little bit wider. Again, we want to try and mix these things up a little bit. And we want to avoid static repetition. And that includes making everybody like the same height. Okay, so let's see here. We got this little dude. Now we don't need, your characters don't need to be human. They don't even need to be like living things. Like you could create characters that are toasters. You can create characters that are um, like this guy, a literal avocado. I do want to try and create some kind of segment here that's meant to be two different things, not just one thing. So, oh, I know what I can do. He's a sleepy avocado. Like that. And then we've got this guy over here. Who here is going to put an avocado in their story now? None of you. Probably. Okay, don't do that. Thanks, Eden. I appreciate it. You just read a graphic novel with a pickle superhero as the main character. Wait, is that Cucumber Quest? Is that what that was?
The series is called The Magic Pickle.
Of course it is. I don't know why I put him in undies. You know what? That's inappropriate. You guys are gonna send angry emails. But the idea is that you don't have to have like everything adhere to the shapes. The whole point is to try and create. Oh, I know what I can do. To make the shape work for you, so that even if it's like super abstract like this, you can still see like where the realism would sort of pop in. I'm going to put a little dab of zinc on his nose because he's a lifeguard. Oh yeah, maybe he's got like a bunch of popped collars. Whoops. Anywho, so here we have a bunch of slightly more complicated characters. Slightly. Actually, maybe I can turn him into a greaser or something. There he is, from the cartoon version of The Outsiders. Get ready to cry. Not bad. All right, so that's two shapes. And lastly, I think we have enough time to do this. I want you guys to create some with three shapes. Now these will probably be the more realistic looking. They don't need to be. Because they can be robots. They can be martial artists. They can be aliens. But they do need to have 3 separate segments. And if possible, try and keep those segments in different different shapes, different shape language. The whole idea is because when you're designing characters, and this is a very, very important thing, if not the most important thing, when you're designing characters, you want to design more than one. When you design characters, you want to be able to try and define the relationship they have with their story, and doing so means you have to figure out what either the relationship they have with the where the conflict is coming from. Is it going to be from other characters? Is it going to be with the relationship they have with the environment? Are they ill suited for the kind of story that they're in? It's up to you. That's where the art comes in, when you start inventing your own reasons why the characters are suited for the story that they are. Is it meant to be kind of tragic? Are they? Is it going to not end well for them, or are they going to achieve their heart's desire? Yeah, don't make them all pretty boys. Throw some different stuff in here.
Or, I say it as pretty boys, but I think something that took me a long time to get over, and I sometimes see in my peers, is that everything has to be pretty or cute or like beautiful. But it's so much more fun when you have kind of an unconventional character, or just characters that are more diverse than, like, honestly, like Western beauty standards. Like, really push yourself to see and think about people like Carl. Like, Carl's not or like, he's attractive in that he's adorable, but like, he is a unique character. He's like a grumpy old man, and they got that perfectly. Think about diverse characters like that. Like, oh, let's draw a grumpy old man, or like, let's draw a lady who has like 5,000 bags, and like, what would that bag lady look like? Hopefully
Exactly.
that makes sense.
No, that's actually really, really great. Eden articulated that perfectly. 3D or flat? For the moment, I'm more interested in seeing guidelines. They can be flat. I'm much more interested in seeing diversity in shape, diversity in. The idea of a bag lady is so great. I really want to use this as the bag lady, because we don't know. Like, literally, we can't even see her behind there. Oh, I have to change some things there though. Hold on. Like, she's got so many different bags. You can't even see her little body. And that's the gag, is that she's carrying like 10,000 bags. Use this as an opportunity to draw things you're not familiar with. Little old ladies, some robots. Um, Figure out where the points of articulation would be. That's a big one that Larissa's going to look at. Where are the elbows? Where are the joints? I don't know why this character is wearing a little sailor hat. I just think it's cute. Oh, that's right, because I wanted to try and continue the little friend shape thing up there. And you don't have to, this isn't going to be like their native colors or anything like that. These are literally just a way for me to show you how I would separate them. The segments, that is. Hopefully this makes sense. I don't know why his leg is pointing backwards, it just is. It's always easier or better, I should say, to start more abstractedly, because especially if you're like me, you tend to think, it needs to look perfect, needs to look more photorealistic. That's actually hardly ever the best way to go about it. And then we've got 3 shapes. Try and create characters that are a little bit more abstract. They don't need to look like, fashion plates. They don't need to look like beautiful manga characters. What's more interesting is that you give them unique silhouettes. You give them shape language that is unique to that character and that character alone.
And I like that you did in this, and like something people should do when working on this assignment, is how you drew the shapes first and you kept the shapes there the entire time instead of erasing the shapes as you went along. Because, you can kind of, if you say, for instance, for the bag lady, if Caleb erased the square shape, like she could have slowly became more of a circle, than less of her square. Um, her square shape. And I also said in the chat that if you want to look at another example of like characters that are very shape based, is the Claws movie that came out, has a lot of like super
Right.
shape based characters. Like the Claws guy himself is basically kind of a rounded triangle. And just like even the characters like facial shapes are just all very absurd abstract shapes.
Absolutely. No, Klaus is a fantastic example. Well said. Here. Right. So literally they can be anything. Here's your assignment though. I want you to create 10 of each of these. So 30 total. You're going to create 10 characters with 1 shape, 10 characters with 2 shapes, 10 characters with 3 shapes that are a little bit more complicated. All right? Oh, Mitchell from the Machine. Oh, excellent. Levi, brilliant. Yeah, and keep it simple. try and do what I did here, where like you put some kind of shape down first. If you do this traditionally, maybe you want to put in, I don't know, grab a marker or cut some paper out into your different segments and put them down, and then draw on top of it. Keep them simple. Literally do what Ed Emberley did, which is just put lines over a shape. Okay, and you can always refine these later on. I want to see them. I want to see them big, diverse. If you see yourself doing a lot of young characters, do some old characters. If you see a lot of tall characters, make some shorter characters. Diversity is going to be the big thing here. Eden suggests doing traditionally and using a light gray Copic or market. You can also use, that's actually really good. I've seen people use, I'm going to stop that, use highlighters. You know, they just make a block of color on a sketchbook and they just fill it in. And if it doesn't work, move on to the next thing. Well, the idea is the same. Start with some sort of combination of shapes or one shape, and figure out and make them different sizes. Figure out where your joints would be, where the arms and neck and hips and stuff like that are going to go. They can be anything. Make a butterfly character. Make a half butterfly, half man character. Make a half butterfly. Make a half man, half robot, or half woman, half whale. Anything you can think of. Just Mothman. Have a or if you want to do like a romantic thing, you can draw a moth ma'am. Sorry. Eden's gonna quit the class even though she's working on it. Powerpuff Girls. There you go. Look at that. Powerpuff Girls is great. Look at if you're looking at specific artists, Ed Emberley is a great place to start, but there are lots of character designers that do a lot of sort of flat stuff. Craig McCracken, that's Powerpuff Girls. Dexter's Lab. Let's see what else is there. I want to say,
Yeah, Samurai Jack's a good
Samurai
one.
Jack.
Even though a lot of it's all very angular, they're still very shape-based.
Well, and they tend to. Oh my gosh, actually, that's a really good example because they tend to have lots of variation and tons of crazy shapes. Total Drama Island. I can't believe I was actually thinking about that as I was doing this, especially with the three shape ones. Yeah, basically like find a bunch of really crazy, beautiful cartoons that you like. Look at some of the ones that the other students are suggesting. Actually, if you can, make some suggestions in the Discord. Just name like 2 or 3 of your faves, especially if they tend to be abstracted characters, more cartoony than not. Realism is great, you know, for the 3 shape bunch. But to be honest with you, realism is actually easier to do than this stage. So, and we want to try and keep it exaggerated and simple. Shinchan, very good. Circles, squares. You can make rhombuses, you can make parallelograms. Absolutely, you can. Again, but the idea is to try and keep it within that. Don't stray too far from circle, square, triangle.
Okay, yeah, because Devani just asked, can we do like rhombuses and parallelograms and stuff?
You can, but again, that kind of strays into more than one. That would like be 2 triangles. Try and keep it simple. All right. Super weird designs. Yeah, this is great. All right, great. You guys are definitely getting this. So we want to see 30. Keep them simple. Keep them exaggerated. Keep them diverse. Old, rich, poor, young, babies, toasters, anything you can think of that could be a character in a story. Anything at all. Bug people, living weapons. You know. Things that are elemental and that I'm not really even thinking of. Yeah, Brave Little Toaster is fine. Household appliances, totally fair.
Yeah, they can be like abstract characters like that.
Yep.
Great. So they don't have to necessarily be human. They can be.
They can be inanimate objects. They can be animals. They can be
just have to have eyeballs.
They just need to be able to convey like some expression, some sort of emotion. They need to have some sort of thing on them that looks like a face. And something to move around with and act with. That's the only restriction. They can be birds. They can be They can be furniture, as long as it has like some sort of face thing. All right, that's it.
Yeah.
4 o'clock, guys. Great job. I'll make sure to put some pictures here into resources. The Ed Emberley stuff will be in the resources as well. And I'll put the slides that I showed you guys as well.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you, everyone. I hope you guys have
Thank you.
a lot of fun with this one this week because I know
Yeah.
perspective was challenging. So think of this as like, don't stress too much over this.
Yeah, loosey-goosey. Keep it simple. Okay, and don't stress about making them look realistic or anything like that. Again, try just stick with what we've gone over so far. Make it abstract.
Okay, great. I'm going
Have
to end
fun.
the recording now.
All right. Thanks, guys.